his incarceration with a number of different professionals. And the victim does not have that benefit. And so, as members of the press, you guys have an incredible influence out there. And if somehow we can put that message across, that the victim's voice needs to come into the process. And particularly now with the lead up to this 16 days of activism. I'm not sure what that does, because you just read the paper about all the tragedies that have taken place during that course. This Kirsten lady who was running in Sandton and murdered and raped a week, 2 weeks before this process of activism against crime, gender-based crime, just leaves me cold. So if I could leave that as a thought. Make sure that this is switched off. What I'd like to read to you today, as a representative of June Steenkamp, is her victim impact statement. And should there be any questions, I'm very happy to try and answer them at the end of my reading of the statement. She writes as follows. At the time of writing this victim impact statement, my memories go back to when my beautiful daughter Reeva Rebecca Steenkamp was born. Reeva was born a miracle. She entered our lives after medical experts predicted that I would have difficulty conceiving after a miscarriage. Barry and I had big dreams for Reeva. From a young age, she became a skillful equestrian and liked nothing better than helping Barry, who managed stables and trained racehorses. From a very young age, she had the ability to light up a room with her presence. When she fell off a horse at the age of 20 and had to spend months recovering, she decided to become a model and use her public profile to garner support for victims of domestic abuse and rape. In the 29 years that Reeva lived, she developed into a well-rounded young lady, completed her law degree, and started a successful modeling career. She already started using her voice to advocate the plight of those that were exposed to domestic abuse and rape. It has taken me the past 10 years to come to realize that Reeva appeared to have fulfilled her destiny during her life, and more abundantly so in her tragic death. Reeva's name and her demise continues to raise awareness around gender-based violence worldwide. But did Reeva fulfill her dreams? I know she didn't. Shortly before she died, she started discussing marriage and having children one day as part of her dream. At 29, she was certainly mature enough and would have made a wonderful mother and wife. Were our dreams for Reeva fulfilled? Of course not. We realized we were blessed as our daughter left us memories we could only be proud of. The massive hole left in our future can never be filled by anyone else. Recently, our family suffered a further blow. It is probably known that my dear husband Barry suffered a stroke 2 months after Reeva's trial began, when he was confronted with more headlines while reading the newspaper. Reeva was a real daddy's girl, and he a doting father. She made an effort to sustain a strong relationship with both of us, and used to telephone her father on Saturday and me on Sunday. I have no doubt that Barry died of a broken heart. No parent should have to bury a child, and most certainly not in the circumstances that prevailed in the demise of Reeva. Following Reeva's death, Barry and I, both devastated, tried with whatever emotional reserve that remained to take care and support one another. And then the unthinkable happened. My Barry passed away on 14 September 2023. What he meant in my life and the extent of his support have now crystallized into what remains after an unending black hole of pain and loneliness. I miss my partner and confidant dearly. The fact that he is reunited with Reeva offers some respite, but does not ease the terrific sense of loss that I've come to terms with, that I have to come to terms with. I'm not attending Oscar's parole hearing, as I simply cannot muster the energy to face him again at this stage. Barry's demise has opened up the wounds in many ways caused by Reeva's death. I had forgiven Oscar long ago, as I knew most certainly that I would not be able to survive if I had to cling to my anger. I do not believe Oscar's version that he thought the person in the toilet was a burglar. In fact, I don't know anybody else who does. My dearest child screamed for her life, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. I do not know what gave rise to his choice to shoot through the closed door 4 times at somebody with hollow point ammunition when I believe he knew it was Reeva. I do know that messages sent by Reeva highlighted huge anger issues. Reeva's messages were read out in court by Francois Moller of the Hawks, obtained from Pistorius and Reeva's cell phones. Following a fight between Reeva and Oscar on the 27th of January 2013, Reeva wrote, and I quote, "I'm scared of you sometimes, and how you snap at me, and how you will react to me." Next quote, "I'm the girl who fell in love with you, but I'm also the girl who gets sidestepped when you are in a SH1T mood. I get snapped at and told my accent and voices are annoying." Third quote, "I was not flirting with anybody today. I feel sick that you should suggest it," adding that he effed up a special day for me by throwing a tantrum. The last quote, "You do everything to throw tantrums in front of people." These are extracts from the cell phone. In 2009, a case of assault was opened at Boschop Police Station for the assault of Cassidy Taylor Memory. The victim required surgery to her ankle. His girlfriend prior to Reeva, Samantha Taylor, described similar behavior by Oscar, throwing tantrums, physical and emotional abuse, all of which were fully described in the book published by her mother. I do not know to what extent his behavior still exists or were evident during his time of incarceration, but I'm concerned for the safety of any woman should this not have been addressed in his rehabilitation process. I do not know which rehabilitation programs were attended by Oscar while incarcerated, but I sincerely hope that his rehabilitation included psychotherapy to deal with his temper and abusive behavior towards women. I also hope that specialist criminologists were engaged to assist in compiling a psychological profile that would assist in determining his risk for recidivism. At this time, I'm not convinced that Oscar has been rehabilitated. Rehabilitation requires someone to engage honestly with the full truth of his crime and the consequences thereof. Nobody can claim to have remorse if they are not able to engage fully with the truth. If someone does not show remorse, they cannot be considered to be rehabilitated. If they are not rehabilitated, the risk of recidivism is high. I am informed that an inmate's remorse and the extent to which they are rehabilitated are taken into consideration at the time of making a parole decision. It is my earnest wish that no one should be subjected to gender-based violence. I hope that parole board panels will evaluate an inmate's rehabilitation by considering his or her engagement with the truth in determining the presence or absence of remorse. My dear Barry left this world utterly devastated by the thought that he had failed to protect his daughter, and therefore, in his role as a father, as he perceived it. The only hope he had left was that Oscar would find it in himself to eventually tell the full truth. It is my hope that the parole decision treat the safety of women as the most important consideration by exercising their power of judiciary. The pain caused by the dastardly murder of Reeva did not only include emotional trauma, it also included trauma that manifested physically, as became evident in the acceleration and deterioration of health in both Barry and myself. When Reeva died, I was a young 67 and Barry 70 years old. I can confirm that our lives were gravely impacted, physically, emotionally, and financially. Should it be decided that Oscar is sufficiently rehabilitated, it is my wish that the parole policies and procedures of the Department of Correctional Services be applied consistently in his release. Signed, Reeva Steenkamp. Thank you. I'm not sure if there are any questions that I can answer, or we can meet again when I give you a debriefing after the hearing. Thanks very much for your time and consideration. Thank you.
We're still outside the Kgosi Mampuru prison here, where Oscar Pistorius is inside, and the parole board is currently deciding whether or not he will be given parole. We've heard from the Reeva Steenkamp, the mother of Oscar Pistorius, through a victim impact statement read by Rob Matthews, describing her thoughts with regards to the release of Oscar Pistorius on parole. Hearing from her that she could not muster the courage to be here today and to face Oscar Pistorius, saying that given the death of her husband Barry in September this year, she could not see herself facing Oscar once again. She also says she does not believe Oscar's version of events, that he did not know that Reeva Steenkamp was inside that bathroom when he shot 4 times through the door. She says that her daughter Reeva Steenkamp, according to witness reports, was heard screaming as loud enough that the neighbors could hear her, and that She cannot understand how Oscar Pistorius did not know that it was Reeva inside. She also says that she does not believe that Oscar Pistorius is rehabilitated, saying that he has not, believed or admitted the truth of the version of events, and saying that she says that there have been no remorse from him at the stage. We're yet to find out whether or not the Department of Correctional Services and the Parole Board decides on whether Pistorius will be released from prison and be rehabilitated into society. We'll keep you updated as we get briefings from the Department of Correctional Services, as well as once again from Rob when we do know more. But for now, back to you in studio.
Tricky link.
I always want these, and it's always the craziest thing to do.
Because the camera is down there. Yeah, but yeah.
Did I look fine? Did my head? His full sentence, but what we have come to understand that during this entire 10-year process since the death of Reeva Steenkamp and his trial, there has been much appeals by the prosecution. If you remember correctly, he was first found guilty of culpable homicide, where he was then sentenced to 6 years imprisonment. That was then appealed, and the conviction was converted and was upgraded to murder, where he was found guilty of murder of Reeva Steenkamp. He was then given a sentence of 6 years as well. The prosecution then took that on appeal as well, and in 2017, once again, we had that sentence changed to the minimum in South Africa, which is 15 years. The prosecution had argued that it was shockingly lenient. The courts took into account that Oscar had already spent 1 year and 7 months behind bars for the culpable homicide charge, and that they took that off, and that is why he's now currently serving 13 years and 5 months imprisonment for the crime. He appealed in earlier this year in March. It was denied, saying that he did not meet the minimum requirement. However, his lawyers took it to the apex court, to the constitutional court, where they then found that the parole board had not taken into account a certain specific period, which meant that he was actually eligible for a release on parole as early as 6 months ago in March this year. So this is why we're here this afternoon. Here it's the Friday. The board is sitting behind us. The statement from the victim impact statement on behalf of Reeva Steenkamp has family has been read into the record. It was also read to us here by Rob Matthews, who is someone who has also felt the loss of a child and also been through the parole process. So he's been speaking on behalf of June Steenkamp, reading out that statement. But we also spoke with the Correctional Services earlier, explaining to us the process that will take place right now. They said that for someone to be eligible for parole, various different factors are taken into account. They include psychotherapy, they include behavioral circumstances, also whether or not remorse is shown, as well as good behavior and conduct within the prison system. It also looks at whether one can be rehabilitated and reintroduced into society, and how that process would be. From what we understand, that should Oscar Pistorius be released, he will be released to his uncle's home here in Pretoria, where he would be staying. There could be various conditions that would be put into place. Some might find themselves on full parole. Others, it could be a day parole. Depends on the conditions that the parole board puts into place. We're yet to know at this stage. We're still waiting for that outcome. We'll keep you, constantly updated as we find out. But for now, the proceedings are still ongoing at this point, and we are yet to know whether or not Oscar Pistorius will be a free man come later today, or even if it's granted parole, he will be released today or later on. Back to you in studio. long did I talk for? Yo. My data bundle's even finished.
To take into consideration the conditions that have been given to Pistorius. I think that's quite important. Remember, he's not a lifer. He did not get a life sentence. The rules for life sentences are very different. But I'm just the dad. I'm not the lawyer.
Some people might say that the sentence is actually quite lenient in the first place. And then to serve 6.5 years for the murder of a woman, defensive woman, is not, acceptable.
But I go back to my point. If that's what the law says, and if those are the rules, then we need to question the rules. We can't question those who interpret the rules and make decisions on those rules, because I think that leads to chaos and mayhem. I think as a law-abiding country, and I believe the majority of us want to be law-abiding people, and if those rules aren't adequate or too lenient, then that's where that issue should be addressed. Okay, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your interest.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Media there after the announcement. Rob Matthews, my apologies. Rob Matthews addressing the media there after the announcement that murderer Oscar Pistorius is going to be granted parole. It's time for a short break. When we come back, we'll have your market news.
Yes. Okay.
Is it working? Is it over easy?
Okay. It's extremely hot here. Colleagues, are you ready? Can I shoot?
Can we go? Is everyone ready?
A very good afternoon. Okay. Okay, I think now everyone is ready. Okay, the parole placement for Mr. Oscar Pistorius has been confirmed effectively from the 5th of January 2024, and I think that's what the victims have also affirmed with you. What will happen from now until the month of January 2024 will be what we call a pre-release program. That's where an inmate is prepared for life outside of a correctional facility. As some of you may expect that a person, not everyone will find it easy to adjust. So psychologically, you ought to prepare that inmate that not everyone will welcome you. Yes, others will open their arms to you, how to react when such things are happening. And also when they find going hard, how to handle such matters, and also how they ought to relate with the monitoring officials, because the reason for monitoring is not to punish inmates, but is to assist them in their social reintegration efforts. So for now, I think I would want to end there, except to say, just like all other parolees, Mr. Pistorius will be monitored by our officials based within the system of community corrections, and until that will happen until such time that his sentence expires, because we always make it a point that parole placement does not mean the end of a sentence, but it merely says that you will complete your sentence outside of a correctional facility, which is part and parcel of rehabilitation efforts. I thank you, colleagues. Unless there are a few questions, I'm willing to take that.
Can I ask, when you say monitor, do you mean he's going to have an ankle bracelet?
Okay.
Or what's the monitoring? What's the nature of the monitoring?
Okay.
And then second of all, Mr. Matthews just gave us a list of the alleged parole conditions. Are you able to confirm that those are in fact the conditions?
Okay, thank you. In South Africa, we do not utilize the bracelets that we'll find in other countries, but we have officials in our system of community corrections. It's a branch, it's located across the country. Those officials' responsibility is to monitor parolees and probationers. So what will happen is that Mr. Pistorius will be allocated a monitoring official So this is the official date. We'll work with him until his sentence expires. If there are changes, they will engage. Why is it important to have a monitoring official? When a parolee is out there, there's many things happening in his life. It could be the change of an address, securing employment or starting a business. All those things do matter because we have to be informed about each and every activity, or in case a parolee is moving from one province to another province, even if it's not long term, we have to then alert our side that be on the lookout to have a parolee coming to that particular site. So it's very important that a parolee has that relationship with the monitoring official, and they then work out a schedule in terms of the visits at home, coming to our offices, unannounced visits. But I want to repeat, the intention is not to make life difficult for a parolee, but is to assist that person that, one, is complying with those parole conditions, two, that an inmate is able to reintegrate successfully. In terms of the parole conditions, I will opt not to detail myself on those. I'm yet to see them, but the conditions, what's important with them, they are there to assist an inmate to adjust and also to address if there are still other areas that require attention. Thanks.
When you say correctional supervision, is he going to be under correctional supervision, and is that house arrest?
Okay. The parole conditions will detail when a parolee is expected to be home, when a parolee is expected perhaps to be out there either seeking employment or engaged in other businesses, and when a parolee is expected to report in our offices of community corrections, or when our officials will be visiting a parolee. So I often hear about house arrest, but it's more about when are you expected to be home, what type of things are you allowed to consume and not to consume.
Like alcohol?
Alcohol, definitely you're not allowed to consume alcohol, drugs and other things. But those parole conditions detail everything. And a parolee has a right to engage with the monitoring official in terms of if there's particular conditions that may feel that are constraining them perhaps from exploring other means. And they have to find ways to resolve such. Is there another question, colleagues? I think we're done. Okay, there's one more.
Why do you think the measures will be enough to keep other women safe?
I think it's a duty for every citizen, whether South African, foreign national, whoever is within our borders, respect the laws of the country. Whether it's a woman, it's a man, whoever, no one has a right to take a life. And when we've seen things going out of control where women and children are the ones, at the receiving end when you compare to other genders, I think as society we have to stand up against such. So when courts issue these sentences, it's in a way of deterrent to say even to others, please, this is not allowed, don't find yourself, in such. Hence, you may have noticed in South Africa, courts have been issuing quite lengthy sentences in a way of, trying to prevent people from engaging in unlawful activities. But our duty as correctional services is to make it a point that sentences issued by courts are respected in a way that people do serve those sentences in full. And that is what we do. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you very much.
Was briefing the media very briefly there on murderer Oscar Pistorius' parole conditions, saying they are yet to be seen, but they are there to assist an inmate not to make their life difficult, to reintegrate into society, no alcohol or drugs to be consumed. He will be monitored and details of that parole will emerge. It's time for a short break.